Hello and welcome to Beve with Ben, episode 80. All right, we're back. I do apologise. It has been a few weeks. Just a few things. Bucks weekend, getting married, been really busy at work, busy training. Just haven't been able to lock in a time to record. But I'm back and I promise I will get another episode out this week. And this week will be a little bit different. Just going to basically cover off a few races that have happened in the last couple of weeks and talk about a little bit of a training tips and go through some athlete interviews, and then I'm going to do another episode completely on training and just recap the last few weeks of training and what's coming up, especially with my race Coast to Kosci and also Ultra Trail Kosciuszko. But I will just cover off a few things first, and we obviously this weekend just had the Honeymoon weekend, which was great, so thanks very much for everyone that came along and got involved in that. It's a very important week this week. The last weekend gone, obviously for training, especially for Ultra Trail Kosci, and this week as well coming up will be one big weekend of training, and then you've basically got one more week after that. So the next 2 weeks you'll have some long hard training sessions coming up, and then you'll sort of start to dial down by the beginning of November. But beer of choice for this episode was a double IPA from Good Folk. So a local brewery, their new double IPA. It is very nice. I have had a 4-pack in the last probably 3 weeks, and I probably will go back and get another one. It is quite strong. It's about 8%, but it is a very good drop. I have added some songs onto the Spotify playlist. It's Pressure from Rufus to Soul, and also another song which was added, which was Pink Skies from Zach Bryan, a bit of country for you. I will go over with a QS from Benn from Zayne Robertson, and the athlete question and training talk will be about carbs per hour for racing ultras as a rough guide. Everyone's obviously going to be different, but just sort of a bit of a guide on how many carbs you should be consuming based on ultras. But I would like to welcome a few athletes that have jumped on board in the last couple of weeks as well. So we've got Guy Elder, Hamish Roberts, Gavin Hodge, Jason Mitchell, and there is a couple more as well that are coming on board. So I will do separate shout outs for them in the next episode. But welcome, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the last couple of weeks, and I will promise to make the podcast a little bit more regular, but again, just time. I will talk about next week's trainings for Strava, just so for Training Peaks, so everyone knows what the go is with that as well. But obviously we had Lonely Mountain Ultra, which was the Bucks weekend away, so I haven't done an episode since then, so going back a couple of weeks now. But we had the Lonely Mountain Ultra 11K with Fiona Adams with 1 hour and 42 minutes and 13 seconds, Ruby Adams with an hour 52:07, Daryl Tonks in there at 2 hours and 14 minutes and 25 seconds and was actually 6th in his age group. Sharon Tonks with 1 hour 48 minutes and 33 seconds. She was 5th in her age group. On to the Lonely Mountain 22K. So we had Alicia Jones with 4 hours 52, running alongside Linda Stanborough with 4 hours and 52. Brett Brancroft, welcome back to racing, and 2 hours and 12 minutes and 13 seconds. I think he was in the top 10 as well for his age group. Susie Heaton, 2 hours and 10 minutes and 33 seconds. She was 1st in her age group. Anissa Story with 4 hours and 21 minutes and 4 seconds. Ben Darcy, welcome back from Europe, with 2 hours and 23 minutes and 13 seconds, and he was 13th in his age group. The Lonely Mountain Ultra 32K, we had Peter Story with 4 hours and 26 minutes and 25 seconds. He was 4th in his age group. Linda Minter, 5 hours, 54 minutes and 25 seconds, 3rd in her age group. And congratulations for getting through a bit of a brutal time out there, Linda, having a bit of a fall and struggling with the altitude. And Pete had a bit of a rough time with the altitude as well. Jess Wrigley had a very good run with 5 hours and 19 minutes and 50 seconds. Jason Mitchell, 3 hours and 58 minutes and 44 seconds. Jason Limbaroo, 4 hours and 52 minutes and 25 seconds. And we had Hugh out there with 3 hours and 42 seconds and 3 hours, 42 minutes and 12 seconds. He was 13th in his age group. Sharon James and Trish Guy were both out running together. They did 5 hours, 19 minutes and 50 seconds. Terry Jones, a solid third in his age group with 3 hours, 49 minutes and 17 seconds. And Colin Phelan, 3 hours, 32 minutes and 14 seconds, and he was second in his age group. Over to the Lonely Mountain Ultra 50K, myself, 4 hours, 57 minutes and 10 seconds with first place overall. Nikita Bucknell, 7 hours and 3 minutes and 17 seconds and was fourth in her age group. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much for making it out there. Did end up being a very, very big night, and thanks to Jason for organising the Robin Hood pub for the Friday night dinner, and the gin distillery for pizzas, and I think the owner's name was Benn as well, and thank you very much for having us for the late evening, early evening, go on to the next pub, which was a late evening, which obviously being a Bucks weekend, normally, the goal was to get me drunk, and they succeeded. I only had 2 beers to start off in the first couple of hours, and I thought I was doing well, and the guys, I was pacing well and staying a little bit quiet until Peter got up at the second pub and announced that it was my Bucks day and I was getting married next week, and all of a sudden I had all these locals, or one local in particular, coming over and buying me a pint and then proceeding to egg me on to scull it. And yes, that was the beginning of the end. So sculling that pint of Bolter, and from then on I was like, okay, well, it's just going to be what it is, and proceeded to drink with the boys, and we left the pub at about 3 a.m, which obviously the daylight savings changed, so it was 2 a.m, became 3 a.m, so getting home at about 3:30 in the morning, quite drunk, and I got to show my pool skills, and playing pool is not my forte, so let's just say that, and but I was very strict and myself, and when I woke up at 9:30 in the morning, I went for a run. I think I was still a little bit tipsy, but anyway, I made myself around Orange for a 5K run, trying to sweat as much as I can out, and so that was an interesting 5K around Orange, and then had breakfast, and then had lunch, and then Brett and I drove home. We probably should have even stayed that Sunday night, given that it was quite a big night. I didn't plan to have such a big night, so hence why I didn't book the accommodation for Sunday night, but it's the way it is. It is a Bucks weekend, and so it was a successful weekend, and the boys successfully won and got me drunk. So that was the first time I've been drunk like that in about 12 years. I've had a couple of nights in the last 12 years where I've been quite a bit drunk and tipsy, but I haven't been that drunk in about 12 years. So it took me a few days to recover. Let's just say that. That was the Bucks weekend in Orange, and well done to everyone. Some really good results. It was a really fun weekend away as well. It was a good race, really well done. The only issue there was, I'd say, especially for those doing the miler and the 100K, live tracking would have been a lot easier to use, especially for those that are crewing for the runners, knowing roughly what time they'll be expected to come in, because basically the crew were just sort of waiting around the finish line or the race hub to waiting for the runner, so not knowing if they were doing okay or bad. You're basically just waiting for the announcers to call over the line to say who was coming up. And they didn't even know that I finished because there's no live tracking and no one was at the finish line for when I finished. So it was a bit of I suppose, being my first win and then getting to the finish line and then trying to hand me a 20K medal was a bit disappointing as well, just not knowing where everybody else was on course. But otherwise, it's a really well done event, and the guys did a great job. Signage was okay, but they did make sure that you had the course on your watch to be able to track via GPS, which was very helpful for me Obviously not being on the course, and there was a few turns where the signage wasn't quite clear. Like some of the signs were behind trees and branches, so you couldn't actually see it until you had actually ran past it. So there was a few little turns with that sort of thing. So just a little bit of better marking, maybe some live tracking, and the event would be even better. But the guys did very well. It was a really good event, really good vibe at the race hub, having the big hub with all the laps and the different races on at the same time, which was great. So obviously that's hard to manage as well. But yeah, awesome weekend, awesome race. I think we should probably maybe go back next year. And plus the wineries is a nice town, Orange. So yeah, do recommend it. And the other weekend, excuse me, Fernley 15. All right. So Fernley 15, we had Mark Holt coming off his double Everest. I will talk about that in a second as well. 1 hour, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. We had Mel Ralph with 1 hour, 4 minutes and 55 seconds. She was first in her age group. Craig Sandy with 1 hour, 6 minutes and 13 seconds, and it was just a PB. Will Mikitosh with 1 hour and 14 minutes. Well done. Matt Stambro with 1 hour and 15 minutes and 31 seconds. Another solid race by Matt. And Anissa Story with 2 hours and 3 minutes and 44 seconds. So well done to those racing out at Fernley 15. It was a good day. I think it would have been quite humid out there on the Fernley as well. I think I ran on the Fernley 2 days before and it was really humid. But otherwise, I think there was about 1,500 runners out there too. So good job. Well done, everybody. And well done to Mark Holt with his double Everest. I think it took him 42 hours or so. So not quite the world record, but still the first and only person to complete a double Everest in Australia. So he's got that on that claim to make. So well done, mate. And that's just an unbelievable effort. Just going up and down Hang Glider Hill was, incredible. But well done. So some athlete interviews talking about Orange. I'll come back to Jacci because she had a race over in France. But yeah, Pete Stories, Lonely Mountain 32. So the goal was to finish and then get drunk with Benn. Shoes were the Salomon Ultra Glides. That has no glide left. Went well. He struggled a little bit with the elevation and I think the altitude. And not being fit didn't help, but you're still coming back, so you did a great job. Managed to get drunk with Benn, so that went well. What didn't work? His legs and his lungs. Also getting locked out of the pub. We stayed out till 3:15 a.m. and he got locked out of his hotel and had to sleep in a freezing car until sunrise. So no sleep after getting drunk with Benn. How did he overcome this challenge? Thinking of beer at the end of the run and getting drunk with Benn. Best part, beer at the end, plus running with friends and then getting drunk with Benn. How did you celebrate? With everybody and getting drunk with Benn. What's next? Celebrating Nicole and Ben's wedding and getting drunk with Benn. So I'm guessing everybody got the theme there. So it was a good weekend all round from Pete's story. And his goal was to get me drunk, and he did. Linda Minter's Lonely Mountain Ultra 32K. What was the goal for the race? To run a 6-foot qualifying time, 4 hours and 35 minutes. What shoes did you wear? The Topo Ultra Venture 3s. What went well? The weather on the race day. What didn't work or went bad? The altitude affected my breathing and my bowels, so it felt like a double whammy. How did you overcome this challenge? I had to stop and slow down to get my breath and to stop shitting myself. So just finished, then became the goal. What was the best part of the event? Seeing Ruby at the crest of the last hill down to the finish line. All the SNL family and all the SNL finish line at the end. Did you celebrate? Yes, at the Parrot Distillery for pizza and lots of love and laughter with the SNL family. What's next? Ben and Nicole's wedding. Cool. Well, they're the two race reports I have. Obviously, we just had the SNL Kosci Honeymoon in Newy this weekend gone, and so there is another couple of weeks coming up with training, which I will talk about now. So we have on Monday we have the SNL strength session at One Tribe. Then the speed session for Tuesday at Lambton and Maitland is a 5:43 times 2. So it'll be basically trying to hold your 10k pace for the 5 and the 4, and then 5k pace for the 3 minutes. The Wednesday morning will be another strength session at One Tribe, and then probably an easy run at Pure Run. On Thursday, it is meeting at Yule Road, and it is the Shaft and Powerline Loop. No, the shaft was closed last week, so we may change that for this week, but I will let you know in advance. Friday will be a long run for some that have got some ultras coming up. Otherwise, just nice stretch session as well. A progressive run for parkrun on Saturday, which will be just dropping 10 seconds per K. I will announce later to Matt Webb, who celebrated his birthday last Saturday, and will have his 100th parkrun. I think he may be doing it this Saturday, and I think he had planned Stockton. So if you can get out to Stockton parkrun, I will announce this in the group as well in case he has changed his plans. But it is Matt's 100. So if anyone and everyone can get to Stockton to celebrate his 100th parkrun, that would be fantastic. And on Sunday we have the SNL long run, so a good long run for everybody. It is a 14.8k loop, so it is up to 30k. There will be obviously adjusted accordingly to everybody, but we'll be starting at 7 a.m. at Pecolbin, and we will have Lisa with some hydration testing. So there'll be a few selected runners that will be getting weighed in at the start and at the finish of their run, and we'll be testing out their hydration levels from the start and the finish to see where their hydration levels are at. So thank you very much for Lisa and her husband that will be coming out to do that. But that is this Sunday. All right, okay. So, how many carbs per hour in an ultra? Well, there has been a lot of new sites come out with, and it's been a bit of a phase where the advertising of a lot of the elites taking on more carbs per hour. So that's where it'll sort of break down the difference. But just some of the details from a couple of podcasts that I listened to about this, and just a few different research and stuff that's been leaked out into the internet as well. But a recommendation, and now again, this is a recommendation, and this is just basically a rough guide and not individualized. So if with carbohydrates, with energy, with food, with nutrition intake, it all is individually need to be customized and tailored for. So this is just a guide from what's online. So depending on everybody's different, everybody can come down to your different sweat levels, your weight, your height, all those sort of things can impact it. But general guidelines for carbohydrate consumption from some, and then I will touch on the higher carb intake. So this is a guide for what's currently sort of recommendation, and then the higher sort of load, which might depend on the intensity that you run at. So really, it's 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. So this is less than 3 hours, or based on less than 3 hours. 60 to 90 grams per hour that are recommended for ultra and distant races, so that are longer than 3 hours, such as 100k races and so on. And can be 50k and up as well. Up to 120 grams per carbs on recent studies suggest the higher trained, so your more elite athletes can handle 120 grams per hour if they are well practiced at consuming that higher carbohydrate intake, and that also might involve at a more intense effort. So roughly that 30 to 60 grams of carbs is like pretty much 2 scoops of tailwind, and your 60 to 90 grams per hour is probably closer to your over 3 scoops of tailwind as a guide for you guys to sort of get an idea of what the difference is. And obviously 120 grams would be about over 4 scoops or 4 scoops of tailwind. So some key factors that will influence is your body weight. So the larger athletes may require to take on more carbohydrates, where smaller athletes that weigh a little bit less need to be adjusted based on your personal needs, your training and adaptation. So you have to practice, especially if you are going to start trying to take on high carb. You do need to train on this and practice this to get your gut used to it. And just making sure you're able to digest and then utilize those larger intakes amounts of carbohydrates for that race. Type of carbs, so maximize absorption should to minimize any any gastro or discomfort. So you want to have a mix of glucose and fructose based products, which will increase. So it's a good way, and a lot of the precision hydration, fix, tailwind, it is a combination of both glucose and fructose. So you're not just if you're having too much fructose, then that can cause discomfort in your gut as well. So making sure that it is a combination of the glucose and the fructose. Glucose is obviously a lot easier to turn into energy, more sugar. But yeah, a rough guide on how to implement this into a 100k race as well. So to get this amount of carbs. So pre-race, you want to have more of a glycogen loading of consuming carbohydrates. So that's leading in. So you might start that like three or 4 days leading into the race. The night of the race, during the day before. So on race day, you eat carbohydrates that are about 3 to 4 hours before the start as well. So that's the carb loading phase. A couple of days leading into, and you want to stay away from. You want to keep it simple, so simple sugars. So and you want to start removing fiber as well. So there are other podcasts that I've gone a little bit more in depth with this. But you want to make sure it's simple carbs. So like white breads, pasta, rice, all those sort of things. And like if you need to get more carbs in, you might be having not energy drinks, some sports drinks like Gatorade, Powerade. You might just want to be having strict like Tailwind. But yeah, stuff that is high in sugar and that's easy to digest. Plain white rice, etc. During the race, you're aiming to consume 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour, so that's spreading it out consistently during the event. So you're aiming to basically consume a 500 ml bottle of soft Tailwind per hour with 2 to 3 scoops in it. You might want to then have, or if you got 2 500 ml, one with water, one with Tailwind, then you might want to be having the Tailwind and then adding in a gel every 30 minutes or so, or half a Cliff Bar or half a banana, that sort of stuff. So you're getting around that, trying to get that 30 to 60 grams carbs. So yeah, if you're running, say, for 15 hours, this would be between 900 to 1,350 grams of carbs total for the race. So mixing your source of carbs from gels, sports drinks, bars, whole foods like bananas and boiled potatoes. So you're also mixing that up too if you like a bit of change in flavour, so you're not getting flavour fatigue. That's where you could also be changing flavours of your Tailwind, different gel flavours, that sort of stuff as well. But yeah, also you want to make sure of obviously practicing this in your long runs to ensure that your stomach can handle the intake, and that if you're finding that you need to intake a lot more fluid-based stuff, that's when you fix your Tailwind, your precision hydration will come into play. But if you are going at a slower pace and you're able to consume solids. So then, the bananas, your boiled potatoes, your bars and that sort of stuff can come into play. The Cliff Block chews are really good to have. The Precision chews are really good as well, adding in those extra carbs. So I think one or two of the Precision chews are 30 grams. So having two of those every half hour as well, just adding in. But an hourly breakdown, again, as I mentioned, would be a gel, 25 to 30 grams of carbs, a sports drink, 30 grams of carbs, so your Tailwind or your Fix, etc. And the energy tubes, 20 to 30 grams of carbs. So trying to break that down every hour and following that through as well, and just rotating it between different sources. But you just want to be making sure you're consistently hitting that target range without overwhelming your digestive system. So some key considerations with this as well, making sure you are getting enough carbohydrates, enough sodium, so is hydration. So making sure you're combining your carbohydrate intake with proper hydration, so drinking fluids with electrolytes, sports drinks to maintain your fluid balance and support the carb digestion, training, practicing on race day, during long runs to ensure your body can tolerate everything that you're intaking. And monitoring, so pay attention to how your body responds during the race, adjusting your carbohydrates and your hydration strategies if necessarily to prevent bonking or any any gastric issues, that sort of stuff as well. So if you are aiming from that 60 to 90, potentially leading up to the 100 gram carbs, again, just practice the strategy of your fueling and just keep monitoring. If you are trying to increase it, just monitor how your gut feels and monitor it in those training as well. So like the new science, again, is consuming those more carbohydrates. I did share a podcast with David Roach on his Hard Rock win, and the amount of carb he was having closer to 120 gram carbs per hour. And it was a really good interview and podcast. He broke down what he did, how he did it, the intensities that he was working at as well. And I think that is the key important factor, that he was racing at a high intensity to allow and support the needs of consuming that amount of energy per hour as well. So if you are looking at that higher carb intake of 120 grams, where is it? Sorry, I've just lost place. I wrote this down a while ago, so I haven't been over it. But it's again getting that right combination of glucose, fructose, plus with your hydration as well. But why it matters is consuming more carbohydrates per hour will delay the fatigue, preserve your glycogen stores, and sustain performance levels over the course for your ultras. The limiting factor is that your small intestines can only absorb a certain amount of carbohydrates per hour. So research shows that combining different sources of carbohydrates, being glucose and fructose, can bypass the body's typical absorption limits. So that's why getting that combination and not just overloading on glucose and not getting enough fructose, that sort of stuff, which I mentioned before. Having those multiple transportable carbohydrates. So the latest research also shows that combining the glucose and the fructose, or equivalents such as maltodextrin and sources, can significantly increase the amount of carbohydrates your body can absorb. These two sugars use different pathways to be absorbed in the gut. So glucose is absorbed by your SLTI transporter, and your fructose is absorbed by your GLUT5 transporter. So that's where those two differentiate. By using these separate transporters, athletes can absorb more carbohydrates without overwhelming one system. This method allows the body to utilize up to 90 to 100 gram carbohydrates per hour instead of the traditional 60 to 90, which would generally be consuming glucose. So some practical implementation. So gels, drinks, bars, they're now formulated with the blend of fructose and glucose, which is ideally being glucose 2, fructose 1 ratio, so 2 to 1 ratio of glucose and fructose. I think that's where precision hydration comes in, and what they've done really well at to allow the body to get more carbohydrates in, and I think they've been one of the bigger drivers for that. This will optimize your carbohydrate intake and prevent any gastro distress, and to maximize your energy availability during the races. So gut training, the new concept of endurance nutrition is gut training. So again, as I've mentioned previously, but yeah, just if you are going to consume that high amount of carbohydrates, you need to be adapted. You need to adapt your digestive system by practicing and training in this. So you might want to start at just slowly doing it. You don't want to be basically going from 60 up to 120. You want, if you are a little bit lighter in that 60, going up to 70, 80, 90, then 90, then trialing 100, and then 110 to 120. You don't want to be jumping up too quick. You need to gradually allow your body to adapt and adjust to consuming more carbs per hour, not just jumping too far up. You want to make sure you're gradually trialing this over, say you're trialing it over a 2-month period, where each long run and during the week you're practicing on slowly increasing it as well. But it's also could be using it for your sessions as well. You might want to load up on your carbohydrates and your energy for different sessions, so your body's getting used to working at a higher intensity with that amount of fuel on you as well. But yeah, obviously training your gut is going to prevent issues like bloating, nausea, cramping during ultramarathon, and it also will allow you to consume those high carbohydrate doses. But yeah, just as you train your muscles and your cardiovascular system, your digestive system needs to practice to be able to handle those fuel demands as well. So it's just another piece of the puzzle. But if you are looking at individual carb strategies in the newer science, so individual carbohydrate intake is not for everyone. Not everyone can tolerate that amount as well. So trial and error needs to be done and needs to be followed. And understanding your hydration levels as well, the sodium intake, it's all the same. But you need to consider, your body size, so how much you weigh, your experience, so again, how well you have been training your gut to be able to handle those amounts as well, and the intensity. So higher intensity or fast efforts will require more readily available carbohydrates than lower intensity pacing efforts. So for lower intensity pacing, you rely on more fat metabolization, and also that will also require fewer carbohydrates. So that's where I was talking about the podcast where he was discussing his intensities and the levels that he was working at to be able to consume those high carbs, and the demand for the high carbs, where he did say if he wasn't working at those intense paces, he wouldn't have needed to follow such a high carb intake. And if he had have slowed down and then still continued at that increase of carbohydrates per hour, he would have then got himself into trouble and had digestive issues because he was taking on too much for the required effort that he was maintaining. So that's a critical factor as well. So if you are running at a higher level and at a high intensity, that's where the glucose, and you need more carbohydrates in the bloodstream. But yeah, timing and distribution is another key factor. So timing over the course of the race, so early fueling, so start consuming carbohydrates early in the race, even if you're not feeling fatigue. That just will help preserve your muscle glycogen stores for later stages. So again, it's not just waiting an hour and a half or waiting to 15k until you start consuming. You want to start fueling early and regularly, so you constantly topping it up. Frequently dosing as well, so instead of consuming large amounts of carbohydrates for the race, and not just waiting till like the 12k 20k checkpoint, etc., where you're getting to your drop bag and then loading up on all your carbohydrates. You want to make sure that you're frequently dosing and topping it up. So your frequently dosing might be every 15 to 20 minutes instead of 30 to 40 minutes. So you're increasing that as well. And having your carbohydrates and your fluid electrolyte balance. So proper hydration and electrolyte balance play a significant role with this. So if you're consuming too many carbs without fluid intake, it can slow your digestion, leading to gut distress. So if you need to filter it into your blood system, you need it to filter. So if you're not getting enough fluid and water in, then you're going to get upset stomachs. So the combination of carbs, fluids, and electrolytes, typically in the form of sports drinks, help maintain your blood glucose levels, so while preventing dehydration and or hypernatremia as well, low sodium. So your drinks like your Tailwind, your Fix, these are formulated to provide both carbs and electrolytes as an optimal concentration, so allowing for faster absorption of nutrients without disturbing the stomach function. So the impact of carbohydrates on fatigue resistance. So the newest research is suggesting that a higher carbohydrate intake may not only sustain energy levels but also reduce your central fatigue, brain fatigue. What does your brain need to function? Glucose. Your brain needs to function by having sugar, and that's why Coke works so well. But by maintaining your glucose availability to the brain, this is especially critical in ultra endurance events, with both mental and physical fatigue being an effect which can affect your performance. So again, we spoke about, last little point, we spoke about carb intake and the range for ultras. So adjusting from that 60 to 90 to 120 grams per hour, but the important factor is combined glucose and fructose on that ratio of 2 to 1. Having those multiple carbohydrate sources, so providing the mix of glucose with the fructose, but to increase your absorption and utilization. Gut training, so it is important that you are training on this as well to allow your gut to adapt to those higher intakes. Having an individualized strategy, so making sure that it's for you and it's not just copying and pasting off a friend or a pro or whatever. And balancing your hydration and your electrolytes, so ensure you're hydrating properly while you're consuming all these extra carbs as well to provide the optimize your digestion and your performance. So by applying all these different advanced strategies, you can push the boundaries of your endurance and avoid energy crashes and maintaining your performance along the grueling and grind we all suffer out there. So just trying again, if you start to feel, that rule of thumb I've always said, if you start to feel fatigued, it's too late. So you need to, and that's why following that 15 to 20 minute rule instead of waiting 30, 40 minutes, you don't want to wait till you feel bonked to start increasing your energy intake. You want to make sure you're constantly dosing and topping everything up to stay energized, to avoid fatigue, and keeping on top of everything, and that's also going to help you stay hydrated and get that balance. But I hope that does help, guys. I've been trying to talk about this for the last couple of weeks, but obviously I haven't recorded. But if you have any more questions about that, I can send you through some more information on it. And also that podcast, if you didn't get it, just let me know and I can resend it. But thanks very much, guys, and thanks for that question. Now, QFs with Benn with Zayne Robertson. So his favourite race experience was a PB on the half, Lake Mac this year, just recently gone. He did very well in that race, and I paced. He was pacing ahead of. Well, he started with my pack and took off after about 5k, and never saw him again. He held strong and had a really good race. Favourite race distance? He's only done 25k and a 36k trail run, which was Rafferty's. But certainly training. But he's now training for the Kosci 50k race he wants to do. Eventually, would love to do 100k and give that a good crack. Training tip: listen to your coach. They know what they're doing. Favourite running shoe? Currently, I've only worn the Hoka Challengers for a trail shoes, but wouldn't mind trying the Salomons, which I believe he just got a pair of the Ultra Glides, so I hope you're enjoying those. Favourite session of the week? The long runs on Sunday. Love the challenge. Holiday destination? Really want to plan a trip around Australia. Something about me. Besides running, I also compete in CrossFit. He's quite a handy CrossFitter as well. Thanks, Zayne. Thanks for sharing that. Hope we all learned a little bit more about Zayne. All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode. As I said, we'll do another recording soon and discuss the training and everything like that as well. So thanks again for listening with Beve with Benn. Stroke Limits Coaching. Stick to the mantras of the 3 Ds: desire, determination, and discipline. And that was perfect timing.